I get to study sex differences in the brain, which is so fun. But sometimes people get confused between sex and gender. So really quickly, we're just going to look at the genderbread person, right? There are so many things that comprise of gender. There's identity, there's attraction, there's expression. So I get to study the most fun part, which is sex, but not the kind of sex you're thinking of. So I study things like ovaries, testes, XX chromosomes, XY chromosomes, trisomes. Like, it gets really wild, just insanely wild. And there are actually sex differences in so many brain disorders. So if you think of some of the brain disorders that come to mind, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, depression, all have sex differences. And it's not as simple as it's more men, it's more women. They're really multifaceted. They occur on a molecular level. It is pretty dope. And so I've been studying sex differences for 6 years now, which is wild. But over my 6 years of studying sex differences, there's one thing that I have really not been able to crack. And that is, what sex difference explains my boyfriend's behavior? Like, for real. So, I have done a really thorough investigation, and I want to share my findings with you all tonight, the scientific community, right? This is peer-reviewed. So, year one of our relationship. You see where this is going. You guys already know. I love this. Year one of our relationship, right? The honeymoon phase. It's all great. You're like, oh my God, he's the best thing ever. This is amazing. Perfection, right? And then I noticed some interesting quirks. Like, he only calls me at 3 in the morning. And he's not out, like, raging at a club. Like, that's too cool, right? He's just calling me at 3 in the morning, and he's like, yeah, the weather's so nice here. I'm out taking a stroll. Like, how are you doing? And, like, how's the weather there? And I'm like, bro, it's dark. It's 3 a.m. Like, I don't, okay, cool. And he's like, yeah, I'm just, like, exploring abandoned buildings. And I was like, okay. So he's out getting asbestos at 3 a.m. But, at the time, right, it's early days, and he had, like, a 3.9 GPA in college, so I was like, okay, he's a bad boy, but, like, he's, like, a nerd inside, right, which is every girl's dream, right? It's like you have the bad boy exterior, and then there's, like, a nice nerd, and he's smart, and so I was like, okay, fine, we'll let it go. I go visit him on his college campus, and we have an assignment due in 2 hours. So we go to the library, and I'm like, all right, we have a deadline, we're going to get this done. So I'm plugged in, my headphones are on, the keyboard is clacking. I'm like, we have things to do. And he gets up and does a lap around the library. And I was like, all right, maybe he just needs to stretch his legs. He's got to get the blood pumping to the brain. Like, I would know, right? Like, so I get it. And then he does it again. And then he does it again. And again. And then it's been 2 hours. My assignment's done. I'm like, great. So glad that's over. I look over, and I see him on Reddit looking up how a guy taught his cat to do skateboard tricks.
That's fair.
Yeah. Like, could that have been the assignment?
I mean, for calculus?
I was imagining, like, a thesis on, like, alternative modes of feline locomotion or something. It could happen. I've seen Stranger Things.
It could have been, like, physics of cat momentum. I don't know. But I can assure you it was not.
Fair enough.
The physics of meow-mentum.
Hey, yeah,
Sorry,
that one
was
was
right there.
I should just get off right here. You
Thank you.
please.
I had Schrodinger's half pipe, so like that's way better.
Wow. You guys are great. This is like the third time we're meeting, but you guys are great. Yeah, he was teaching this. He was looking up this cat skateboard. So at this point, I'm like, okay, there's something wrong, right? I was like, the honeymoon phase is officially over. I was like, okay, look, no disrespect, dude, but like, there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And you know the saying, they're like, oh, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, right? So I was like, you probably should go see a doctor. I'm really concerned about your well-being. I think you could improve your quality of life. But deep in here, I'm like, I can't live like this. Like, we gotta fix this. There is something wrong. So
I just want to say, I feel like this always happens
Yeah.
when like the female partner sees what happens on Reddit. Like, this
I
is
mean-
just super consistent. And they IPO'd today, so buy in now, everybody.
No, really. I'd only been on Reddit before meeting him for like career advice. And
What?
I did. Yeah, I mean,
Is that
There's
even
career
a thread?
advice on Reddit?
yes, there's some good
Reddit for
career.
everything.
I
It
don't-
makes sense, but
I mean, look at where I am now. I can't really tell you if it's
I
good
feel like
advice.
you're misusing Reddit.
Yeah. The cat's on skateboards. I'm like, yeah, of course.
Well, then we should talk later. So, you know, when you do that thing when you're sick and you have all these symptoms and you start to Google because you're like, I wonder what I have. And, you know, usually Google is like, you're going to die in 48 hours. And you're like, all right, cool. So I start to
You're
Google.
on.
Yeah, literally. I start to Google. I'm like, let me see if I can figure out what he has before the doctor does. Before the certified medical professional does. And so I'm Googling around, and there's something that just really is hitting. Like, the symptoms are on point. And the symptoms are impulsivity, inability to focus, thinking without acting. I was like, ooh, that last one really got me. I was like, this is just lining up. And it's ADHD. Yep. Yes. Yeah, 100%. It's very common. It's 100%. Listen. So it's ADHD. And so one of the symptoms of ADHD is trouble processing input. So the time from which I told him to go see a doctor to when he realized what I was saying was 3 years. That's just how it went, right? Okay. So he goes to a doctor. The doctor is like, I'm going to give you a survey. I want 2 people who know you well to fill out this survey. So he gives one to me, and I am like thrilled. Because I've been cataloging things, right? I know exactly what he did wrong. I know the day. I know the time. I'm like, I could write a dissertation. Like, forget a survey. This is going to be a piece of cake. No problem. So this is what my survey looked like. And so just for some context, right, here's a survey. Basically, there are a bunch of questions that are like, oh, are these symptoms, blah, blah, blah. And you rank on a scale, how does he exhibit these symptoms never/rarely or all the time? And as you can see, I was like, all the fucking time. Because it was true. It was true. So the only thing is, he said 2 people. He picks 2 people, right? The other person is his mother. Now, he's from Honduras. They don't really do ADHD in Honduras. They have other things to worry about right now. So his mother fills it out, and it looks... Ooh, sorry. My bad, guys. It looks like that.
So for the podcast audience, that has shifted from all 4s to all 1s.
Yep, perfectly balanced, right, as all things should be. So, you know, there are questions like, does he fidget? I'm like, yeah, he's like restless leg syndrome mascot. And she's like, no, never. There are questions like, does he remember obligations? And I'm like, no, he forgot Valentine's Day. Like, how more, you know, it doesn't get more obligatory than that. And she's like, no, he's good. And then there's questions, does he talk too much in social situations? And I'm like, bruh, I can't get him to shut up at home. And that's not really a social situation, it's just me. Like, and she's like, no, he's a really shy kid. So needless to say, his diagnosis really came down to how good of a day the physician was having, right? Because these are 2 perfectly balanced evaluations. It really came down to the doctor, right? And I'm not going to say who's right or wrong, but he got diagnosed with ADHD. So, you know, there was that. And, you know, we're going to come full circle. There are actually a lot of sex differences in ADHD that are really, really interesting. Because a lot of what we know about ADHD symptoms are built off of studies of boys and men. And it is more prevalent in boys and men. But the primary symptoms that I described to you, the impulsivity, the inability to focus, the fidgeting, those are male-dominated symptoms. And those are called hyperactive symptoms. So when you look at a woman with ADHD, these symptoms are actually very different. They tend to demonstrate what's called inattentive symptoms. And that can look like lack of motivation. It can look like anxiety. It can look like repetitive behaviors. So you can see how if you don't know about the sex differences in ADHD, you might think that a woman with ADHD just has depression. But she doesn't. It's a lot more complicated than that. The treatment right now for ADHD is stimulants. And I know that might be a little confusing. You might be like, well, if someone's like impulsive and all over the place, like why would you want to give them stimulants? Like why would you want to stimulate them further? So let's imagine my boyfriend, right? So let's say you've had a really long work week, 100-hour work week. You've been sleeping 3 hours a night. You have been skipping lunch to work. Not at all what it's like to get a PhD, right? Not even close at all. So Friday night comes, and you're like so tired, right? You get home, what are you gonna do? You're gonna eat a bag of chips, you're gonna change into your sweatpants without showering, and you're gonna fall asleep on your couch because your brain is so exhausted that even though those aren't the best things for you in the moment, that is all you can manage to do. So imagine an alternate reality where someone gives you like tequila shot style, like a shot of energy. Or one of those like Panera supercharged lemonades. I mean, apparently they've been killing people. Like it's really bad, but you know, you get energy. You get energy.
I like the audiences you're appealing to with your distribution here.
Yeah.
Really PhD heavy. Yeah. And so, you know, you get this shot of energy and you do things differently, right? Because your brain has the energy to make higher decisions. So you make a 3-course meal, you read, you do laundry, and these are all things that are harder in the moment but are better for you long term. And that's really how stimulants work with ADHD. At baseline, untreated, the brain is so exhausted that it goes right into chips, sofa, sweatpants mode. And that makes it really difficult to plan for life, right? But when you give stimulants, those symptoms become manageable. Now, the only problem is that getting my boyfriend diagnosed with ADHD and, you know, having him fix himself has really backfired. And the reason why is because before he was so busy managing his own symptoms that he never noticed when I was doing anything wrong. So I could just do whatever I wanted, right? Like, I came over, I was like, I'm not gonna put things back where I found them because he's messy anyway, right? Like you can't mess up mess. Like that's, and it's really Chloe's Wild West over here. And so when he started to take medication, he actually had the bandwidth to notice all my flaws, which this is every girl's dream, right? Year 5 of the relationship, the guy realizes all your shortcomings. Like, that's totally normal. That's great. You know, sounds good. And he comes up to me one day and he's like, you know, I noticed you've been really down lately. I feel like you haven't been very communicative. I noticed you don't put things back where they belong. Do you think maybe you have ADHD? So you guys, you heard it here first. Thank you.